The dream was one of those ones that's super clear. It's as clear as real life. When you're in the dream, you're completely lucid in the dream. And in this dream, I had this serpent that was living in my core. So right down the core of me, just in front of my spine, was this serpent, and that was its home. But in the dream, I felt like I had to get this serpent out of me. So I was reaching my hands down my mouth and down my throat, and I was grabbing onto this serpent by its tail, and I was pulling it out of my mouth slowly, this wriggling, strong serpent, pulling it out of my mouth. But every time I would pull it out and put it down on the ground, it would very quickly slither back down into its home. It felt like that was its home in my core. And I kept trying to get it out. But every time I would pull it out, again, I would put it down, and it was very fast and slippery and quick and strong, and it would quickly slither back down inside me. And at one point, I put it down on the ground, and I kept my mouth closed so it couldn't go back inside me, and it slithered up my leg and up my anus and back up into my core. So any way that it could get back in there, it was determined to stay in there. And then there were men around me. They felt like brothers. They felt like brothers of the community, like the men I'd been sitting in the sweat lodge with. And so they were there to help me. And I was reaching down inside and pulling this writhing snake out, and they were all helping me and holding onto it, and it was really strong. And then finally, we figured out a method to keep it out of me. And it was a big glass jar, and it had a big lid on it. And the lid on the jar had those handholds down into gloves, like when you put your hands into a humidity crib with a little baby that's inside a humidity crib, and to keep the baby sterile, you put your hands in through those gloves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can help the baby, but it's all sterile. So this lid on this jar had these gloves, and the men undid the lid off the jar for me, and I put my hands into the gloves, and then I could take the serpent, and I was taking it carefully. I didn't want to hurt it, but I had to be quite firm with it. And then I put the serpent in the jar, and while I was holding the serpent, the men closed the lid of the jar for me, and then I could take my hands out, and then the serpent was out of me. The interesting part is that before we got to this part in the dream, in real time and space, one of my children was unsettled in their bed, and I needed to go and settle them. So I was in the middle of this work. It felt like work. It felt like a job I had to do. And I was in the middle of this work in the dream, and I hadn't finished it yet. And one of my children woke. And so I got out of bed, and I went into their room, and I settled them back to sleep. I came back into my bed, and I knew the work wasn't finished. I lay back down and consciously went back into my subconscious to go back and finish the work in the dream. So then I finished the work in the dream, and I woke up in the morning, and that was the dream.